Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, it's Dian here. Today I'm going to be presenting about my research draft on the focus of non-testing assessment. Let me present my slide about my research draft. So, I am here about to conduct a research under the title Non-Testing Method in EFL Learning as an Alternative Assessment. Anyways, a test in any classroom setting for most people might be kind of term that is not likely to be positive or pleasant. Instead, it could be stressful for many of them who have to take a test. According to Brown 2003, along with the expectation in taking the test, the anticipation of a test will raise and is usually associated with the feelings of anxiety and afraid of not being successful in passing the test, thus altering the traditional test with other procedures and tasks to assess the student's knowledge, performance, or ability should also be considered. Here are some previous related studies about the topic. Rumila and Aji in their study implied that learners had good perception towards the use of informal assessment, which is supported by the learners' high demand to the practice of the informal assessment for language abilities. So the studies have actually also worked on the students' perceptions, but we only come to that topic. But then another studies that is also worked on the assessment, on the non-testing assessment, which is focused on the self and peer assessment. It's Mansouri to 2020. He implied that alternative assessment methods using self and peer assessment brings a positive influence to the language learners' performance and also their learning achievements. This study is aimed to find out about students' perceptions on non-testing methods of assessment used in EFL class, as well as to explore kinds of non-testing assessment that is used in the classrooms. Therefore, the research questions becomes, how are students' perceptions on non-testing methods of assessment? What kind of non-testing assessment methods are used in the EFL class? Speaking of the assessment and its alternatives, of course, we gotta find out first about the characteristics of various alternatives in assessment. To make it clear that assessment is not only testing form. There are many kinds of other forms instead of testing that can be used in assessment. Those characteristics of alternative assessments are drawn by Brown and Hudson in 1998. First, assessment should involve students to perform, create, produce, or do something. It also needs to deal with real-world context or simulations. Assessments are also non-intrusive in that they extend the day-to-day classroom activities. A good assessment also should allow students to be assessed on what they normally do in class every day. Not only here means not only the product at the end of the learning outcomes. Assessments also should use tasks that represent meaningful instructional activities, rather than only standardized questions. And then also the alternative assessments also should focus on the process as well as the product. And then assessment should also tap into higher level thinking and problem solving skills. Those will practice students' higher their thinking skills. Next, assessments should also provide information both about the strengths and the weaknesses of the students. And assessments also should be multiculturally sensitives when properly administered. A good assessment also should ensure that people are not machines by only do the scoring or using human judgment. After that, assessments also should encourage open disclosure of standards and rating criteria. Assessments should also call upon teachers to perform new instructional and assessment roles, not only by testing again here. As it has been said that testing is only one type of assessment, so it means that there are many kinds of non-testing assessment that can be used at the classroom to assess the students. They are such as: first, performance-based assessment. Reflecting to its name, performance-based assessment requires students' performance. This performance-based assessment also need to be evaluated direct observation by the teacher. The next kind of non-testing assessments are portfolios. Portfolios here is a kind of a purposeful collection that is shown students' effort, students' creativity, and then their also their achievements during the teaching and learning process. It also provides comprehension information on students' creativity and critically thinking ability, and also problem solving ability, and focus on its process rather than its product. Next kinds of assessments that can be used in assessing students at the classrooms are journals. Journals here actually deals with a kind of free writing. A journal is basically a record of thoughts, feelings, or responses and ideas by the students in achieving goals, and again, it's usually in a written form. One style of assessment that is most commonly used in the classroom is called dialogue journals. Dialogue journal is actually to find out about students' learning process, affective states, and also the needs. And it allows also the teachers to interact and communicate with the students by giving them feedback towards their writing. Next kind of assessment of non-testing assessments are conferences and interviews. In general, conferences actually take the form of conversations or discussions between the teacher and one or more than one students about the school works. Conference usually entails interviews that is proposed to achieve these several goals, such as to assess students' oral productions. Next kind of non-testing assessments are observations. At the classrooms, without aware of it or not, teachers actually have always been observed their students. Here, that means can be done by spontaneously. However, observations can also be done systematically with organized plan to be more focused in observing a particular aspect. And then the last kind of non-testing assessment is self and peer assessment. Self-assessment actually emerged as the impact of the famous learning autonomy concept, where it assumed to be the cause as successful learning. Meanwhile, peer assessment is coming from the concept of cooperative learning. Self and peer assessment allow the students to involve in their learning activity, to have autonomy in their learning process. Next, in this research, involves some kind of methodologies as follow. The first, the research method and design that is used in this research is a qualitative approach with case study. The research participants involves 24 EFL learners of grade 5 and then 1 EFL teachers of the same grade. In collecting the data, the researchers here is going to distribute questionnaires to find out about students' perceptions on non-testing methods, as well as conducting an interview towards the teacher to find out what kind of non-testing assessment that is used in her class. After collecting the data, the researchers is going to analyze the data by using the flow models of Miles Huberman. First, it's going to be working with the data reductions, and then going to be with the data display, and finally comes to the conclusion drawing. That is all, everyone, for the research plan or draft of mine. Thank you, everyone. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.